What would happen to humanity if the Earth were no longer habitable? Not in 1,000 years, not in the distant future, but now, in this century. Imagine a planet where the sky is not blue, but a murky, blue-green mix, where the clouds are made of methane, and the winds can exceed 900 kilometers per hour. Now take a deep breath and think with me. Could you live in a world where even the atmosphere wants to kill you? This planet exists. It is in our own solar system. And according to some speculative scientific projections, it could one day become humanity's only remaining refuge. But the price to pay would be high, very loud. Today, we'll explore what would happen if Uranus, the most inhospitable and forgotten planet in the solar system, became our new home. This is not science fiction. This is not a conspiracy theory. We are talking about real scenarios studied by astrobiology, astrophysics, and aerospace engineering. There is nothing scarier than the unknown, and when that unknown involves human survival in extraterrestrial environments, everything changes. Everything you know as life, temperature, gravity, sunlight, breathable atmosphere, disappears, and in its place, a frozen, violent, and almost inaccessible world emerges. Uranus can appear calm from a distance, with its bluish hue and elegant rotation. But behind this apparent beauty hides one of the most extreme environments ever studied by modern science. While scientists analyze the feasibility of colonizing planets like Mars, little is said about what could happen if the only viable planet available in the future was Uranus. What if all terraforming and survival efforts had to be aimed at the most forgotten and hostile planet we've ever orbited? Get ready, because this video will take you on a journey that challenges the logic of human life, confronts current technology, and makes you rethink what it means to survive. We're talking about supersonic winds that would make planes fall apart in the air. We are talking about an atmosphere composed of hydrogen, helium, and methane, with pressures so absurd that they would crush any structure that tried to land. Temperatures that can reach -224 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze gases. Different gravity, unstable magnetism, absence of solid ground, and yet in an extreme scenario, we would be there. But why? Perhaps a global climate catastrophe on Earth. Perhaps a biological collapse, a nuclear war, or an extinction caused by some external agent like an asteroid. We don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter how we get to Uranus. The question that matters most now is, how would we survive there? Before this journey begins, I warn you, this is not about fiction. It's about real possibilities, discussed by scientists from all over the world, that lead us to reflect on the limits of human adaptation, technological advancement, and how far we would be willing to go to avoid disappearing. And if you are here now, it is because you know that the universe is cruel, and not all solutions are comfortable. This video reveals one of the scariest truths about space colonization. Leave your like now and subscribe, because this journey will leave you in shock. Let's cross together an atmosphere that could kill you in seconds. Let's dive into a planet where the very concept of time and rotation is so distorted that days and nights become entangled in gravitational chaos. And in the end, you will understand what it's really like to live on the most hostile planet in the solar system. But is there any chance of transformation? Some type of human, technological, or evolutionary adaptation that would allow us to inhabit this blue nightmare? That answer begins to reveal itself now. You are already at the limit of the atmosphere. The silence that dominates the space gives way to a dull roar, like the muffled sound of thunder that never ends. And then you enter. What was once just a distant planet, little remembered even in documentaries about the universe, now reveals itself in all its hostile and merciless magnitude. Uranus. Yes, it's him. Uranus, the ice giant, often overlooked in discussions of space colonization, overshadowed by more popular planets like Mars or Jupiter, or intriguing moons like Titan and Europa. But now, he becomes humanity's only hope. And ironically, perhaps it is also our final sentence. Imagine a planet that spins on its side, literally tilted at 98 degrees, as if it had been thrown by a colossal impact shortly after the Big Bang. This anomalous behavior causes its poles to receive sunlight in such a strange way that day and night there can last decades. Decades. We are talking about a planet where time, climate, and even gravity behave in bizarre and uncontrollable ways. Its atmosphere? Lethal. Made up mainly of hydrogen and helium, with significant traces of methane, This gas is responsible for the bluish tone that Uranus exhibits from a distance. But make no mistake, behind this mesmerizing beauty hides a freezing hell. The temperature can reach minus 224 degrees Celsius, one of the lowest in the entire solar system. In comparison, it is as if the cold were so intense that it would even freeze time. This combination of gases creates such crushing atmospheric pressure that any attempt to land with current technology would result in the immediate collapse of the ship's structure. Imagine an astronaut trying to walk there. Even inside the most resistant exploration capsule created to date, the materials would not last more than a few minutes. The fuselage would buckle, crack, and implode without mercy. No NASA mission, no simulation, no suit known today was made to withstand something like this. And we're not just talking about cold and pressure. Uranus is home to winds that reach speeds exceeding 900 kilometers per hour. For comparison, this type of wind is faster than a military fighter. Now imagine this invisible force crashing into the side of a makeshift human shelter. A blast would be capable of ripping entire modules off the surface and launching them forever into the dark blue sky of that world. Nothing would remain standing. No structure would remain stable. And what's worse, there is no way to accurately predict when these storms form. Uranus does not follow the meteorological rules we know on Earth. Have you ever tried to imagine what it would be like to live in a place where there is barely enough sunlight? Where can the day last 40 years? Where there is no solid ground to stand on? Because yes, Uranus is a gaseous planet. This means you couldn't just land like we do on the Moon or Mars. There is no floor, there is no base. The only possibility would be to float above dense and toxic clouds, trying to survive with capsules suspended in unstable balance. And even that would be a dangerous boldness. If humanity were forced to live there, we would have to reinvent engineering, biology, and even our own physiology. We are talking about adaptations that border on the impossible. Anti-pressure domes, floating environments with artificial atmosphere, genetically modified humans to withstand this new environment. These ideas are already circulating among astrobiology and advanced physics theorists, but none of them have made it into models. Yet. But why Uranus? Why not just keep trying with Mars? Why not explore moons like Titan, which have a solid surface? The answer may be where most don't look. Some studies in cosmology and theoretical physics suggest that Uranus, despite being hell for humans, may contain an unknown form of energy in its depths, a concentration of internal heat that, if controlled, could be used as an energy source to power entire cities for centuries. A fusion of elements not yet fully understood, but which fascinates researchers of interplanetary science. And it doesn't stop there. There are those who even believe that something is hiding inside Uranus. Not alien life, as we imagine in movie classics, but perhaps a nucleus composed of materials so rare and unstable that they defy the laws of conventional physics. Some researchers linked to space exploration and the study of black holes in distant regions of the Milky Way have raised shocking hypotheses. What if Uranus's abnormal rotation is not just the result of an ancient impact, but of an interaction with an unknown cosmic object, an artificial gravitational field, or even the influence of a body that we don't even know exists, like the much-debated Planet 9, or even the mysterious Planet X. This is all still theory, of course, but in the field of space science, even the most absurd theories have served as a starting point for extraordinary discoveries. After all, who knew there would be underground oceans on frozen moons like Europa or Enceladus? Space exploration thrives on unanswered questions, and Uranus, as unlikely as it may seem, could be the next one. In the meantime, here we are, imagining a future where humanity survives, not because it found the ideal planet, but because it had no other choice. Earth, shaken by centuries of global warming, ecological collapse, depletion of natural resources, wars, and perhaps even asteroid collisions, is no longer home. The other options were discarded due to lack of time, technology, or feasibility. And so, Uranus, the planet where stars don't shine, where the cosmos behaves in bizarre ways, and where physics itself seems to play with logic, becomes the new address of the human race. Imagine this, a group of colonists floating on a sea of gas, illuminated by a cold, dim light, trying to recreate a civilization on suspended structures, held in place by artificial gravitational chains, children being born without ever seeing a starry sky, without stepping on solid ground, not knowing what the warmth of a sunset is. Now look up. because Uranus is still there, spinning in silence, observing. That's where we are, on the verge of the biggest decision in the history of humanity. Live or disappear. And you? What would you do? Comment below. Do you think we could survive on Uranus? Or just write, new home, new fear, if you were as shocked as I was. Because now, let's go even deeper into this journey. The mission has already been decided. There is no turning back. After decades of trying to reverse the devastating effects of global warming on Earth, ecological instability, conflicts over resources and climate collapse, humanity has reached a tipping point. The blue planet is no longer a safe home. Oceans advanced, continents shifted, and even the remaining habitable zones became unstable. The only chance now is to seek refuge beyond. Not on Mars, not on Titan, and yes, on Uranus. The idea, previously treated as absurd even among experts at NASA and the astrophysics community, is now transformed into a plan of action. The first human mission to the most hostile planet in the solar system is counting down. Space, with its silent and implacable vastness, watches us as we embark on one of the greatest daring ventures in history, migrating to a gas giant. The trip itself would be a monumental challenge. Uranus is more than 2,800,000,000 kilometers from Earth. It is the seventh planet from the Sun, located in a cold and distant region of the solar system. Reaching it would require the use of propulsion technologies still under development, perhaps based on nuclear fusion or hybrid interstellar travel concepts, powered by advanced artificial intelligence and self-sufficient life support systems. Space exploration engineers are already discussing ion propulsion engines and even theoretical possibilities of propulsion based on artificially manipulated gravitational fields, ideas that flirt with the principles behind wormhole theory and the curvature of space-time, as proposed by some modern interpretations of the Big Bang theory. At first, only probes would be sent to test the extreme conditions of Uranus's upper atmosphere, and even they, made with the most resistant materials known to science, would probably be destroyed in a short time. An unmanned capsule that entered the deepest levels of the atmosphere would face pressures and winds so intense that its circuits would collapse before sending all the data. This has happened with previous missions to other planets. Even probes launched at Jupiter were quickly disintegrated, and conditions on Uranus are no less brutal. But suppose we manage to create a robust mothership with a thermal shielding system and electromagnetic protection against the planet's unstable fields. The orbital approach would have to be calculated with surgical precision, as Uranus does not have a defined solid surface like Mars or Mercury. The craft would need to remain suspended in its outer orbit, perhaps anchored to artificial satellites or orbital structures, while habitation modules are released toward the upper layers of the atmosphere. These initial habitats would not land, they would float. Inspired by concepts studied for the colonization of Venus, these structures would be like giant pressurized balloons, with housing domes attached to flotation systems based on lighter gases. Each dome would contain a mini biosphere: oxygen, plants, recycled water, artificial lighting based on solar simulations, and even rotation-simulated gravity. Artificial intelligence would become essential. It would control internal temperature, regulate structural stability, and make autonomous decisions in the face of any critical failure. And the first ones to get off? Astronauts specialized in extreme survival, not movie heroes. Real people, trained to withstand physical and psychological pressures never before faced by our species. The bodies would need to be prepared with armored suits, equipped with life support systems, similar to those used in lunar missions and experimental augmented reality projects for exploring the deep cosmos. Visual contact with the atmosphere would be the first confirmation that we are in another world. There would be no horizon, not even the floor. Just an ocean of constantly moving gases, lightning lighting up the abyss below, thick clouds of methane tinged blue-green, and the sensation of floating on a chaos-breathing giant. The first human bases on Uranus would be suspended colonies, attached to orbital elevators or automated docking systems. Some theories already studied by scientists linked to astrobiology and cosmology suggest that in the future, we could use structures called skyhooks, as if they were gravitational hooks capable of maintaining habitats in stable regions of the upper atmosphere. Of course, none of this would be possible without international cooperation. The new space race would no longer be a competition, as it was between powers during the 20th century, and would become an alliance for survival. ESA, NASA, private agencies, scientists from all parts of the Earth would combine their knowledge in physics, engineering, planetary science, and medicine to build the first generation of human beings prepared to live permanently outside the home planet. But the questions don't stop. What would it be like to be born on a planet with different gravity? What would a child's development be like in an environment where rotation time is completely altered? Space medicine is already studying the effects of microgravity on astronauts on the International Space Station, but on Uranus, the challenges multiply exponentially. Some theorists speculate that biological adaptation could lead to targeted genetic modifications using CRISPR and other bioengineering tools. Hybrid humans, adapted to extreme negative temperatures, very high pressures and non-breathable atmospheres. It may seem like science fiction, but remember, 50 years ago, the idea of stepping on the moon seemed the same, and yet it happened. NASA's Apollo mission forever changed our understanding of space and what is possible. Now in the new era of solar system exploration, the frontier is no longer space itself, but the ability to recreate life in places where it should never exist. We are talking about one step further, a new chapter in the history of the galaxy, a colonization where the very notion of a habitable planet needs to be redefined. Uranus does not want to receive us. He rejects life with winds that kill, cold that freezes time, pressure that destroys everything. And yet, there we will be. If we can build habitats in the orbit of a hypothetical black hole, as already proposed in advanced physics studies, applied to the exploration of exoplanets, why not on Uranus? What if, one day, we discover that the energy generated in its icy core hides a form of propulsion capable of opening paths for even more distant interplanetary travel? What if Uranus is just the beginning, a stop between the destruction of Earth and the search for planets in other galaxies, beyond the edge of the Milky Way? Imagine being among the clouds, without sky, without ground, but with hope. A cold, fragile, artificial hope, but alive. And now I want to know, could you live like this? Would you accept floating in the blue abyss in the name of survival? Write in the comments, I would float on Uranus if you would accept this new destiny. Or comment, I wasn't born for this, if you think humanity has gone too far. In the next stage of this journey, we will find out what would really happen to the human body on this planet, and I can guarantee you, it will give you goosebumps. Next, let's dive into the real cosmic hell, what it would be like to try to live on this planet, focusing on details biological, physical, and psychological that would cause silent, visceral terror. Now that you've imagined the arrival, the suspended habitats, the technologies, and the astronauts floating over a world made of gas and mystery, it's time to face the most brutal side of this story. Because it's one thing to dream about space colonization in the name of survival, another is to survive the day-to-day life of Uranus. Let's start with the basics. The human body, an organism adapted for millions of years to life on a planet with a mild temperature, breathable atmosphere, balanced magnetic field, and ideal gravity. Now take that body, your body, and throw it into the most hostile environment in the entire solar system. The result? It wouldn't be pretty. Imagine for a second that your pressure suit fails. The internal shielding gives way because of the insane pressure of Uranus's atmosphere. You feel a pop, a strange vibration in your chest. Before you can even think, air begins to escape through the microhole. You are more than 2 billion kilometers from Earth. Nobody will help you. The only thing you can do is watch your body collapse. And now comes the part that few dare to show. What would happen to you? Without the protection of the suit, your blood would start to boil within seconds. And we're not talking about heat. We are talking about pressure difference. The atmospheric pressure on Uranus, in the upper layers, is already tens of times greater than that on the Earth's surface. As it sinks, this pressure multiplies exponentially. Your body would be compressed like an aluminum can. Your lungs would collapse. His eyes would be crushed against his skull, and if there were any functioning sense left, it would be swallowed by a terrifying and absolute silence. That is, of course, if the temperature didn't freeze every molecule in your body before then. Because here's a scary fact about space science and planetary physics. Uranus is the coldest planet in the entire solar system. Colder than Neptune, colder than Pluto. Temperatures there can reach minus 224 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze gases into a liquid state. Hydrogen itself, in certain layers, takes on a metallic liquid form that is almost unknown on Earth. This creates unstable magnetic fields, which can disrupt electrical systems, corrupt data, and completely disable the instruments that keep human life going. Now add to that the winds. The winds of Uranus. They are a separate story. In scientific documentaries and data provided by astronomical observations from NASA's Voyager mission, winds have been recorded at speeds exceeding 900 kilometers per hour. That's faster than any hurricane ever recorded on Earth. Faster than most commercial planes. Imagine trying to keep a structure, even a floating one, stable, in a place where the air itself moves with the force of a projectile. Entire structures could be ripped apart like aluminum foil. Habitats could be flung toward the gaseous abyss, lost forever among the clouds of methane and helium. And we can't forget radiation. Uranus's magnetic field, unlike what we have on Earth, is inclined, unstable, and irregular. This means that any breach in the colony's protective shield would allow the entry of cosmic radiation, gamma rays, highly energetic solar particles, all of which could cause genetic mutations, brain failures, and irreversible cellular damage. Studies in astrophysics and space medicine already suggest that on planets with unstable fields, the incidence of cancer and degenerative diseases could be 1,000 times higher than on Earth. And as if that weren't enough, there is time. Not the time you read on the clock, but time as you feel it. Uranus's axial rotation is so tilted that a single day there can last up to 17 hours, but a single pole can remain facing the sun for 42 years. In other words, part of the colony could be constantly under diffuse light, weak and bluish, while the other part plunges into total darkness for decades. Imagine being born without ever seeing the sun, growing up without knowing what a shadow is, getting old without setting eyes on a star. This isn't just uncomfortable, it destroys the human mind. The astronaut's psychology would be tested to the extreme. We already know that long periods of isolation and lack of sunlight cause emotional disturbances, hallucinations, insomnia, and deep depression. Now multiply that by generations. Children growing up in floating capsules, with no floor, no horizon, no sky. The concept of Earth would become a legend told by the elderly. The words tree, wind, sea would be noise without an image. Culture would rebuild itself based on fear, survival, forced adaptation. And as if all this weren't enough, there is still a factor that few dare mention in space documentaries: the invisible threat. The most daring conspiracy theories, although unproven but discussed in the darkest corners of cosmology and speculative physics, point out that Uranus may be close to a dimensional rift, a gravitational tipping point caused by ancient interactions with black holes in uncharted regions of the galaxy. Some models of the parallel universe theory indicate that Uranus's inverted rotation, its distorted magnetic field, and even its strange axis may be remnants of an unknown cosmic event, an echo of an anomaly that transcends what we understand as Newtonian physics. Carl Sagan himself, one of the most respected names in astronomy and a staunch defender of science as a survival tool, said that the universe is stranger than we can imagine. What if this strangeness is accumulating on Uranus? Some believe that the gravitational anomalies observed in its orbit may be related to the hypothetical Planet 9, or the mysterious Planet X, which, according to mathematical models, may exist beyond the edge of the solar system. Other scholars speculate that Uranus's abnormal tilt could be the result of a collision with an unidentified cosmic body, an invisible asteroid, a supernova fragment, or something from outside our known universe. And this is where the boundaries between science, quantum physics, cosmology, and fear blur. After all, we still know very little about gas giants, and even less about the behavior of dark matter, dark energy, wormholes, and the effects of extreme gravity in non-terrestrial environments. Uranus may just be the tip of the iceberg, a natural cosmic laboratory that holds the clues to understanding the origin of everything, or the end of everything. And now think, living in this environment, breathe with the help of machines, eating foods grown in artificial greenhouses, protect yourself from winds that destroy steel, sleep without seeing stars, working to maintain a living structure amid chaos, having children and explaining to them that planet Earth was blue and had a sky. It seems like a distant dream, but it is a possible future. Not by choice, but out of necessity. Now it's up to you. If you were really there, Could you survive all of this? Comment here. I would face Uranus if you would accept the challenge. Or write, this is beyond the limit if you think it would be impossible to resist, because the journey doesn't end here. There is still something darker, deeper, and that's what we're going to talk about next. What if, against all odds, humanity actually succeeded? What if engineering, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, physics, and even human biology came together to overcome the limits imposed by nature and finally establish a permanent civilization in the frozen clouds of Uranus? Yes, it's hard to imagine, but it's not impossible. Science has proven to us many times that what seemed absurd yesterday has become reality today. When the first satellites were launched during the space race, no one imagined that decades later we would be sending robots to Mars, nor that we would have telescopes like the James Webb, capable of observing the light from galaxies formed shortly after the Big Bang. The universe is vast. The impossible, this is just a matter of time. So let's imagine, a century has passed since their arrival. Earth civilization adapted. New generations were born floating between methane storms, in orbital colonies suspended above the blue darkness. The Earth as we knew it no longer exists. Homeworld is now just a digital memory preserved in databases. Humanity's new home is there, hidden on the outskirts of the solar system, amid the icy silence and crooked magnetic field of Uranus. Cities are now vertical structures, connected by pressurized tunnels that snake through the interior of gigantic domes, reinforced with titanium alloys and materials created especially to resist the pressure of that environment. There are rumors of floating underground bases, built below the visible atmospheric surface, where pressurized caves maintain a minimum artificial gravity, simulated by gravitational gyroscopes based on principles of quantum physics. Agriculture is based on synthetic photosynthesis. There isn't enough sunlight, so everything is produced artificially. Light, heat, rain, wind, even time itself seems to have been domesticated by technology. Life is a constant maintenance of the illusion of stability. Human beings, on the other hand, are no longer the same. After decades of exposure to microgravity, invisible radiation, and altered atmospheres, the body began to change. In some colonies, children are born with shorter bones, smaller lungs, eyes adapted to low light, thicker skin, and increased resistance to toxic elements. In others, genetic interventions have become commonplace, not as a choice, but as a survival policy. Humans reinforced, modified, shaped to adapt to Uranus and not the other way around. Technology has taken control. Artificial intelligence systems coordinate everything, from the climate of the domes to reproductive cycles. No critical decision is made without the scrutiny of core algorithms, which learn, adjust, and optimize life as data accumulates. They don't make mistakes, but also, they don't ask. They don't feel it. They don't negotiate. You don't choose where you live. The AI chooses. You don't decide how many children you will have. The AI calculates. You cannot leave the colony. Out there is Uranus. Out there is death. But perhaps the saddest thing about all this isn't the control. Maybe it's the absence of beauty. There are no starry skies. There is no sunrise. There are no forests, seas, rains. The stars, which have always enchanted humanity since the dawn of astronomy and astrology, are now visible only through holographic simulations on reinforced glass walls. The brightness of the Milky Way, once admired by poets, is now a memory projected by machines. Children learn about the Earth from books, or rather, in digital files. They heard about forests, about birds, about rivers, but they never touched a real leaf. They have never felt the natural heat of the sun. For them, the idea of heaven is a metal ceiling with constant white light. The concept of the blue planet is almost mythological, as if it were a cosmic legend told by the elderly, those who were born before the Great Migration. And the question that begins to arise is frightening. Would this really be a victory, or just a slower, more controlled form of extinction? After all, we are no longer a free species. We don't decide where to go. We have nowhere to go back, and everything that surrounds us is synthetic. Water, air, light, hope. We have become a civilization maintained by machines in a world that never wanted us. A world where every second is won with extreme effort, where every step needs approval, where every heartbeat depends on the authorization of an automated life support system. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live trapped on a planet that spins sideways, where time is distorted, where gravity challenges you at every moment, where the sky is an abyss that watches without blinking, where the very nature of the cosmos seems to be rejecting you, where every ray of hope needs to be created artificially, as if human existence itself were a forced project within the cold logic of physics and cosmology. It's hard to say which would be worse: absolute failure or total success. Because deep down, perhaps the worst prison is the one we call home. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think this would be a new beginning, or the end disguised as survival? Comment below. Living is not the same as being free if you felt the weight of this reality. Or comment, I would live on Uranus if you still believe that hope can be born even in a blue hell. But hold on tight, because in the next part, we go even deeper. And what's coming could be even stranger than anything we've talked about so far. Of course, here is the last part of your itinerary with about 4,000 characters, totally faithful to the style and dramatic continuity that you have been developing so far. I kept the reflective, impactful and visual tone, with natural use of space niche keywords and techniques for maximum audience retention. This conclusion does not close the video permanently, as it opens up space directly for the next hook, as you requested. The most hostile planet in the solar system is now the only possible home. This phrase, said out loud, seems to defy common sense. It seems absurd, cruel, distorted, but if you've followed this journey so far, you know it's more real than we'd like to admit. Among so many options in the vast universe, from Mars to Titan, from Europa to unexplored exoplanets, humanity has reached the point of considering Uranus as its last hope, a planet of ice, of invisible storms, of crushing silence, a place that until recently was just another name in astronomy books or a distant image in documentaries about the cosmos. But now he's all that's left. Uranus, that icy, tilted giant with its isolated orbit, its little understood moons and its life-rejecting nature, has become a symbol of our failure and, at the same time, our resilience. And perhaps this is the greatest irony in all of human history, because amid the collapse of the Earth, the chaos of gravity, the silence of the galaxy, we have become what we never imagined: interstellar refugees, space nomads, children of the Big Bang, forced to rebuild their lives in a bluish prison without walls. And make no mistake, there is no going back, there is no return trip. Interstellar travel, even with extraordinary advances in theoretical physics and quantum engineering, is still a dream for future generations. NASA itself admits, in its most conservative reports, that colonizing Uranus would be a risky, time-consuming, and almost irreversible operation. Because we're no longer talking about short trips like a mission to Mars. We are talking about exile, of a cosmic ban imposed by the choices we made here, on the blue planet that now only slowly rotates among the ashes of its collapsed atmosphere. And even with all the scientific and technological advances that have brought us here, from the Hubble telescope to manned missions, from the conquest of the moon to attempts to simulate artificial atmospheres, the feeling that remains is the same: loneliness. A loneliness that not even the stars of the Milky Way can fill. Because looking at the sky on Uranus is not like looking at the sky on Earth. There are no stars visible with the naked eye there. What you see is a bluish veil, dense without depth, as if the universe had blacked out all the window and locked you inside. And yet, we continue, because we are stubborn, because we are curious, because despite everything, there is something in us that insists on continuing. Perhaps it is the same impulse that led us to discover fire, create celestial maps, explore oceans and later galaxies. Perhaps it's the same mystery involving supernovae, rotating black holes, hidden exoplanets, and the still uncertain existence of extraterrestrial life. The truth is that the universe is too vast not to try, and that's why we're here, surviving. Not as conquerors, not as pioneers, but as fugitives, trapped inside floating domes, breathing recycled air, watching meteors silently cross an atmosphere that doesn't belong to us. We are human, but how long will we be? The colonies continue to grow. Earth's archives are preserved in silicon crystals, stored in underground databases orbiting Uranus at very high speeds. The new generations have already been born into this environment. They don't know the sound of the wind between the trees. They never felt sand under their feet. They never saw a shooting star or heard the sound of rain falling on the roof. And yet, they learn about the universe, about the planets, about the solar system, about the moons of Mars, comets, exploding stars, and the still abstract concepts of quantum physics and cosmology. They learn about Pluto, Jupiter, Venus, Neptune, and the mysteries of Planet 9, the hypothetical celestial body hidden at the limits of our system, which could explain so many gravitational anomalies observed by astronomers in recent years. They learn about the Earth, but that's all. They learn because they will never see. And it is at this point that everything starts to get confused, because maybe, just maybe, we haven't achieved anything. Maybe we didn't win. Maybe we're just alive. But being alive is not the same as being free. Being conscious is not the same as being awake. And surviving in this new scenario may be the most elegant and silent form of extinction. I'm sure this content opened your mind and made you reflect on the future of our species, on our place in the universe, on the dangers that we still don't see. So, leave your like right now and subscribe to the channel. This really helps this journey to continue and shows me that you want to continue exploring these paths with me. And prepare because in the next video, the danger comes from outside. It will appear here on your screen, and it's even more disturbing than this. So click to watch right now, as I cannot guarantee that this video will remain online for long. Until next time,